The system's directive was simple. Make the obsessive female lead fall in love with me, and I could go home. I spent 3 years on it, finally maxing out her affection score to 100. But then the system flashed a new message. Mission failed. Target corruption at 100%. Forced imprisonment protocol initiated. She locked me in a windowless room. She stayed by my side every day, her devotion a terrifying, twisted thing. Did you really think I didn't know you were a contractor? You were only playing a part to get home. Well, now you can never go back. Now you belong to me. I was filled with despair. Then the system's voice echoed in my mind once more. Secret mission unlocked. When the affection of the corrupted target reaches 100%, the target will return to the real world with you. Cold shackles bit into my wrists, the other end bolted deep into the wall. The chill of the metal crept up my skin and straight into my heart. Isabel Croft knelt before me, her fingertips tracing the line of my jaw. Her smile was sweet yet utterly cruel. "Leo, look," she whispered. "This is the perfect distance between us." I tried to ping the system in my head, begging for an extraction. The only response was a line of cold red text. Forced imprisonment protocol active. Extraction denied. And then silence. Isabel switched on a massive projector that covered one entire wall. The screen lit up with my life for the past 3 years, surveillance footage of every moment I had spent winning her over. Every second, every frame was there, nothing omitted. It even showed me when I was alone, talking to the empty air, conversing with the system. She pointed to an image of me practicing a gentle smile in the mirror. Her voice was deceptively innocent. 3 years of playing a part. You must be exhausted, but it's over now. You never have to pretend again. Shame and rage burned through me. I lunged forward, trying to break the restraints, the chains rattling with a deafening clang. She just tilted her head, then casually pressed a hand against my shoulder. An impossible strength pinned me to the bed, making it impossible to move. She whispered in my ear, her voice like a lover's, "Don't make me hurt you." I began a new form of protest, a hunger strike. I thought it might make her compromise, or at least angry. I was wrong. She wasn't angry. She wasn't even impatient. She simply brought a bowl of broth and held the spoon to my sealed lips. "Begin now. Open up." I turned my head away. Unfazed, she set the bowl down and seized my jaw. The pressure was so intense, I felt the bones groan. She forced my mouth open, pouring the broth in little by little. The warmth of the food mixed with the humiliation of being violated, and I felt sick. When she was done, she used a napkin to gently wipe a drop from the corner of my mouth. "You see, you can't fight me. Why do you make me do things this way?" To make me lose all hope, she showed me the terrifying extent of her power. She made a single phone call right in front of me. Erase every trace of Leo Vance from this world. 30 minutes later, she handed me a tablet. On the screen were my social security records, my university transcripts, my social media profiles. Everything that proved I existed was deleted before my eyes, one by one, until there was only a blank page. I had become a ghost in this world, a ghost that no one knew, no one could find, no one except her. I fell into complete despair. Physical escape was impossible, and my mental defenses were crumbling. I grew numb, becoming a doll for her to command, until one night, pretending to be asleep, I felt her sit on the edge of my bed. In the darkness, I heard her murmuring to herself, a choked, desperate sob in her voice. "Why? Why are you leaving me? Just like everyone else." I froze, and then a realization hit me like a lightning bolt. To win her over now that she was like this, I couldn't use the old methods. I had to find her weak spot, the true vulnerability hidden beneath all that madness. I changed my strategy. I went back to playing the part of Leo, the man who deeply loved her. When she fed me, I would open my mouth willingly, offering her a soft smile. When she helped bathe me, I would thank her quietly, my voice laced with dependence. I was trying to rebuild that affection score that had been wiped clean. Isabel seemed to enjoy it. The smiles returned to her face more often until one day she walked into the room, pushing a strange machine. It was a polygraph. She attached the sensors to my fingertips and chest, smiling like an innocent child. Here, hook yourself up and tell it you love me. My heart plummeted. I looked into her expectant eyes and forced the words out. I love you, Isabel. The polygraph shrieked, a piercing alarm that filled the room as a red light flashed erratically. The smile on her face vanished instantly, replaced by an icy rage, the fury of being played for a fool. She grabbed the machine and hurled it against the wall. Parts and wires exploded across the floor. Liar, you're still lying to me. She dragged me by my hair into another room. It was a padded cell, completely white and soundproof. The walls, ceiling, and floor were all made of soft, seamless white material. The lights were always on, erasing any sense of day or night. I was stripped of all sensory input. No sound, no color, no perception of time passing. I don't know how long I was in there. A day, 3 days, a week. My mind began to fracture in the absolute silence. To keep myself from going insane, I started talking to myself, replaying every detail of the last 3 years, every conversation, every mission, searching for a key, a way out of this. On the other side of a hidden camera, Isabel watched it all. When she finally let me out, I felt like a husk of my former self. I dropped the act. I just looked at her with a tired, cold indifference. She brought me food, and I ate. She told me to do something, and I did it. I was a puppet without a soul. Finally, she couldn't stand it anymore. Why won't you talk? Why won't you look at me? I lifted my head and met her eyes for the first time since the White Room. You win. Just kill me. I'm done playing this game. Isabel froze. She had probably imagined 1,000 different reactions from me. Breaking down, begging for mercy, trying to lie again, but she had never considered that I would just give up. She lunged at me in a fury, her hands clamping around my neck, slamming me against the wall. Your life is mine, she screamed. You don't get to die until I say it's over. As my vision started to go dark from lack of air, I saw something in the depths of her crazed eyes. Fear, a deep, bone-chilling fear. And suddenly, I understood she wasn't afraid of me not loving her. She was afraid of me quitting the game entirely, leaving her utterly alone in her silent world once more. It turned out she was more terrified of the game ending than I was. I began a dangerous gamble with my own body as the playing board, a kind of self-destructive psychological warfare. One afternoon, Isabel brought me lunch, then turned to pour me a glass of water. In that brief moment, I used the sharp edge of my shackle to slice a deep gash into my forearm. Blood welled up instantly. When she turned back, water glass in hand, the glass slipped from her fingers and shattered on the floor. Leo, she shrieked, her voice sharp with a panic I had never heard before. She scrambled for the first aid kit, her hands trembling as she cleaned and bandaged the wound. Her eyes were red, but her touch was incredibly gentle, terrified of causing me more pain. I watched the system panel in my mind's eye. Target corruption, 95% temporarily decreased. Hidden metric empathy index, 30% rapidly increasing. My gamble had paid off. Making her hurt for me was a more powerful tool than making her love me. From that day on, I found new ways to get accidentally injured. I'd choke on a fishbone at dinner, stumble getting out of bed, and cut my forehead, scratch my arm in the shower. I never did any permanent damage, but the injuries always looked horrific. And every time, Isabel would react with a volatile mix of frantic anger and overwhelming pity. She would dress my wounds herself, feed me my medicine, and watch over me all night. Her empathy index, under my careful manipulation, continued to skyrocket. Finally, I decided it was time for the final decisive blow. Dinner that night was an elaborate meal she had cooked herself. I ate slowly, methodically. Then I discovered something in a side of asparagus, a long, thin silver needle. I didn't say a word. I just held the needle between my fingers, looking at her with an expression of wounded disbelief. The color drained from Isabel's face. No, it wasn't me, she stammered. I didn't. She had no way to defend herself. I had hidden the needle perfectly, having stolen it from sewing kit days earlier. She assumed one of the household staff was trying to harm me. Right in front of me, she summoned the entire staff. Her cruelty was chilling. There were no questions, no investigation. She had all the kitchen staff who had touched the food dragged away. Screams echoed from outside the door, then were abruptly silenced. The entire mansion felt deathly quiet. When it was done, she returned to me, her legs giving out as she collapsed to her knees by my bed. She looked like a child who had done something wrong. Terrified of being abandoned, she clutched my hand, her voice a desperate plea. "Leo, you have to believe me. It wasn't me. Please don't stop trusting me." For the first time, I held all the power. I reached out with my uninjured hand and gently stroked her hair. My voice was soft, laced with a perfect amount of weakness and reliance. "I believe you, but I'm scared." Her entire body went rigid. Then she buried her face in my palm, her shoulders shaking with violent, silent sobs. The system's notification chimed in my head. Target Empathy Index has peaked. Breach detected in target's emotional module. Trust level plus 5%. I looked at the vulnerable nape of her neck and finally understood the new rules of the game. I no longer needed to play the part of a lover. I had to become her one and only treasure, something precious, something fragile, something she constantly needed to protect. The increase in trust bought me a sliver of freedom. The shackles came off, replaced by an elegant bracelet that monitored my location and heart rate. I was allowed to move freely on the first floor of the mansion. Whenever Isabel was out, I began searching for the root of her corruption. I knew there had to be a core trauma beneath her madness. I searched nearly every corner of the mansion before I found it, tucked away in a locked walnut music box in her study. It was an old locked diary. The lock was easy to pick with a bit of wire. The pages were yellowed with age, the handwriting delicate and childish. It chronicled a young girl's journey from being cherished to being cast aside. She had been used as a pawn by her own parents to secure a deal with another powerful family. There she met an older boy, a protector who was incredibly kind to her. He told her stories, chased away bullies, and never left her side when she was sick. His every action was gentle, considerate, and flawless. It was a perfect mirror of the strategy one had used on her for 3 years. The last few pages of the diary were a mess of frantic, tear-blotted script. After securing her family's support and solidifying his own position, the protector had thrown her away without a second thought, getting engaged to an heiress from a more suitable family. He said he loved me. It was all a lie. Everyone leaves. Everyone lies to me. It all clicked into place. My 3 years of work hadn't been a successful campaign of affection. To her, it was a cruel reenactment of her deepest trauma. That 100-point affection score wasn't a mark of success. It was the trigger that detonated 100 points of dormant hatred. Just then, the study door creaked open. Isabel was standing in the doorway, watching me. Her eyes fell to the open diary in my hands, and her pupils contracted violently. "What are you reading?" Her voice was eerily calm, but made the hair on my arms stand up. Before I could answer, she launched herself at me like a cornered animal. Furious and desperate, she was trying to grab the diary, to rip it to shreds, to destroy the evidence of her own broken past. She thought I would use it to mock her, to attack her. I didn't move. I didn't even close the book. As she lunged, I opened my arms and pulled her into a tight embrace. Her nails dug into my back, and her teeth sank into my shoulder. A sharp, searing pain shot through me, and blood quickly soaked through my shirt. But I didn't fight back. I just held her tighter. I leaned in close to her ear, and in a raw, broken whisper, I spoke the words that defined her trauma. "It's okay. This time I'm not leaving." Her body went rigid. The biting and clawing stopped, and then, folded in my arms, she began to wail. It started as a cry of rage, but soon dissolved into years of repressed, hysterical grief. The system's panel lit up with notifications. Core memory accessed. Target's emotional barriers are collapsing. Trust level plus 50%. Initiating stage 2 mission, soul resonance. Our relationship entered a new phase. Isabel no longer used physical restraints, but the ubiquitous security cameras were a constant reminder that I was still her bird in a gilded cage. She began taking me with her to public events. At a lavish corporate gala, She clung to my arm and introduced me to everyone. This is Leo, my partner. The eyes of the business world's elite were on me. Some curious, some calculating, some knowingly dismissive. I was a beautiful trophy she was showing off. Then I saw a familiar face in the crowd. A man charming a young Aries with a glass of champagne and a gentle smile. On my internal system panel, a green dot blinked over his location. Friendly contractor detected nearby. I had found another one. I tried to signal him for help. Under the guise of turning slightly, I made eye contact, my fingers subtly flashing a distress signal at my side. He clearly noticed me, a flicker of surprise crossing his face. Just as I thought he might respond, Isabel's grip on my arm tightened, her nails digging into my flesh. She leaned close, her voice a saccharine whisper laced with venom. "What are you looking at? He's smiling at you. Does that make you happy?" I immediately snapped my gaze away, daring not to make another move. The next day, I was reading in the living room while Isabel trimmed my nails. She switched on the television. The financial news was on. Sources report that Thorne Industries, a prominent local corporation, was shut down overnight amid allegations of massive financial fraud. The CEO and his wife had been taken into custody. A chill went down my spine. That was the family the other contractor was targeting. The broadcast cut to a local news segment, a reporter covering an accident. Early this morning, a man died after a sports car plunged off the Riverside Expressway. The vehicle has been recovered from the river, but the driver was pronounced dead at the scene. His identity is pending confirmation. The footage showed the mangled wreckage of a sports car. It was the same one the contractor had driven to the gala, which had accidentally disappeared. My blood ran cold. Isabel put down the nail clippers, admiring her work on my hands. "I don't like it when other people look at my things," she said casually. "And I don't like it when you look at other toys." In her world, that could only be me. Any potential threat that might distract me or divide my attention would be ruthlessly eliminated. I finally understood the full gravity of my situation. Calling for help was a death sentence. Right there in front of her, I pulled up the system in her face. In my friends list, there was a single grayed-out name, the contractor I had just added before we even had a chance to speak. Without hesitation, I deleted him. I looked up at her. "In my world," I said, my voice so calm it scared even me, "there's only you." She smiled, deeply satisfied. In that moment, something deep inside of me died. The other contractor's death was a thorn in my side. Even more disturbing was the system's complete silence on the matter. The disappearance of one of its agents wasn't even worth a notification. A few days later, the system issued an urgent new task. Warning: target Isabel Croft's childhood betrayer, Julian Thorne, is returning to the country. Mission: expel Julian Thorne before he can make contact with the target. Failure penalty: unknown. I stared at the message, stunned. The system was issuing missions that perfectly aligned with Isabel's personal vendettas. It wasn't a neutral program at all. It was working for her. My doubts about this world, this mission, and even the promise of going home began to solidify into a terrifying certainty. I didn't act immediately. Instead, one afternoon, I casually mentioned to Isabel that I'd heard Julian Thorne was coming back. I expected anger, anxiety, but her reaction was completely unexpected. She just raised an eyebrow, a cold, amused look on her face. "Is that so?" she said. "This should be fun." Her response confirmed my suspicion that something was very wrong. Sure enough, a couple of days later, Julian found me. He slipped into the mansion while Isabel was out, using a blind spot in the security network. "Leo Vance, I know who you are," he said, getting straight to the point. "I'm a contractor, too. My mission is to reclaim Isabel Croft." He told me a staggering secret. The world we were in wasn't some virtual reality. It was a massive, real-world experimental zone controlled by an AI system developed by the Croft Foundation. The system's sole purpose was to find a perfect, emotionally stabilizing partner for the family's mentally unstable Aries Isabel. All the contractors were just candidates handpicked from the real world. "Isabel is a psychopath. You'll never have a good end with her." He urged, his eyes and tensed. "Help me destroy the system core, and we can both escape this hellhole." I listened with a placid expression, agreeing to cooperate. But inside, a much more audacious plan was taking shape. That evening, after Isabel returned, I told her everything. Julian's entire plan, the location of the system core he'd given me, his infiltration route, every last detail of his attempt to turn me against her. I looked at her, and for the first time, I spoke to her as an equal, a hint of a challenge in my voice. He wants to take me away from you. So, how do you want to play this? Whatever you decide, I'm with you. I was choosing to betray my own kind, to throw my lot in completely with the monster. I was done being a pawn. It was time to become a player. My unreserved confession delighted Isabel. She lounged on the sofa, hooking a finger under my chin, her smile as cunning as a fox's. Such a good boy, she purred. For the first time, she handed the reins of power to me. So tell me, how do you want him to disappear? I saw the excited glint in her eyes, and a meticulous plan formed in my mind. I want him to fall from the height of his triumph into the depths of despair. Over the next few days, Isabel and I orchestrated a masterful performance. I started to provoke her constantly. She, in turn, was a brilliant actress, subjecting me to all kinds of abuse. Of course, it was all a show. The gruesome-looking wounds were just hyper-realistic special effects makeup. The screaming matches were for the benefit of the hidden cameras Julian was monitoring. I used the secret communication device he had given me to feed him false intel. She knows we're in contact. She's torturing me. I'm at my breaking point. You have to get me out of here. I can't take it anymore. Julian bought every word. In his eyes, I was just a desperate, broken pawn he could easily manipulate. He quickly set a date for my rescue. That night, under a bright moon, Julian followed the intel I provided, successfully disabling the mansion security and sneaking into my room. "Lo, I'm here to save you," he said, a triumphant smirk on his face. "Let's go." I nodded and followed him to the door. Suddenly, the living room lights flooded the space. Isabel was sitting calmly on the sofa, casually toying with a small metal device. The color drained from Julian's face. I slowly walked over to Isabel's side. As Julian stared in disbelief, I took the escape tool he had given me, the signal jammer that temporarily disabled the cameras, and placed it in Isabel's outstretched hand. "You were right," I said to her. He was getting noisy. Julian's expression shifted from triumph to shock, then to pure, unadulterated terror. You too." Isabel didn't give him a chance to say another word. She snapped her fingers, and several security guards emerged from the shadows. They dragged Julian out like a sack of trash. I watched the whole thing without a flicker of emotion. When silence returned to the mansion, Isabel wrapped her arms around me from behind. She rested her chin on my shoulder, her warm breath ghosting over my ear. "There," she whispered. "Now you finally smell like you belong to me." I caught my reflection in the dark glass of the floor-to-ceiling windows. The face staring back at me was cold, alien. I knew there was no going back. A cold mechanical voice chimed in my head. "Soul resonance, 90%. Target now considers you one of us." After Julian was gone, Isabel granted me the highest level of administrative access to the system. "It was my reward," she said. Sitting at the master console in the study, I finally saw the true nature of our world. The truth was far more brutal than what Julian had described. This wasn't just an AI experiment. It was a real, isolated private city, a massive human laboratory built with the full resources of the Croft Foundation, designed to observe and select. Everyone designated a contractor had been carefully chosen from the outside world. Orphans, convicts on death row, desperate people on the fringes of society who had been made to disappear. The reward of going home was real, but it wasn't about returning to our old world. It was about earning permanent residency in this city, instantly becoming a member of its elite. The penalty for failure was having your mission-related memories wiped, then being cast down into the city's underclass of laborers, servicing the city's functions in perpetuity, or, like Julian, being completely erased. I pulled up my own file. Name, Leo Vance. Background, orphan, no living relatives or social ties. Reason for selection, superior intellect, emotionally detached, possesses extreme psychological resilience and will to survive. The perfect candidate to become her partner. So from the very beginning, my life had been a carefully orchestrated lie. Isabel had known everything. All along, she knew it all. She had just been an amused spectator as all of us candidates desperately performed for her, enjoying her sick, predatory game of love. She wasn't waiting for someone who would simply complete the mission to get home. She was waiting for someone who could see through the game itself and, upon seeing the truth, would choose to descend into the madness with her. A true partner in crime. I looked at the massive 3D model of the city on the screen, the sprawling population data scrolling below. I felt no anger, no sense of betrayal, just a profound, hollow sense of the absurd. I closed the program and turned to face Isabel, who had been standing behind me the whole time. I asked her one question. If I hadn't been a contractor from the start, if I was just some random guy you met on the street, would you have ever fallen in love with me? She was silent for a long time. So long, I thought she wasn't going to answer. Finally, she met my gaze, her eyes unwavering. She spoke each word with precision. There are no ifs. If you weren't a contractor, you never would have had the chance to appear before me. I laughed. Of course, with that one statement, she had personally shattered the last tiny illusion of purity I had been clinging to, shared authority, the truth of the world. It seemed I had gained everything I could possibly get. But the system, which was to say Isabel, had one last mission for me. Final choice, huh? Accept reality. Enter into a legal partnership with Isabel Croft and assume joint control of the city. B. Initiate the homecoming protocol. You'll be sent out of the city alone. All related memories will be erased, and you'll be returned to your world of origin. The choice was now mine. Isabel simply watched me, a neutral observer standing outside the game. You earned this, Leo. I gave you the chance to hurt me. Now I'm giving you the chance to leave me. She opened a drawer and took out a black handgun, placing it on the desk in front of me. Of course, she said softly. There's a third option. Kill me. The system will crash instantly, and a temporary gap will open in the city's perimeter defense. You could try to escape through there, back to actual human society. There's only one bullet in the gun. This was her final, most extreme test. She wanted to see what I would choose now that I knew everything and held all the cards. Power, a false freedom, or mutual destruction. I picked up the gun. The cold, heavy steel was a grounding presence in my hand. I slowly raised it, aiming directly between her eyes. There was no fear on her face, no hesitation. In fact, in those beautiful eyes, I saw a flicker of sick, ecstatic anticipation. She was daring me to pull the trigger. I smiled. Then, as she watched, I turned the gun around and, without a moment's hesitation, pressed the muzzle to my own temple. Her pupils shrank, the calm facade on her face cracking instantly. A world without you, I said, my voice steady as I looked into her horrified eyes. What's the difference between that and the dark room you first locked me in? Then I pulled the trigger. Click! The sound of the firing pin hitting an empty chamber was deafening in the silent room. Isabel screamed and lunged forward, snatching the gun from my hand and pulling me into a crushing hug. Her body was trembling violently, as if she might shatter into a million pieces. She was crying. For the first time, she was truly crying in front of me. A messy, gasping, helpless child. One last time, the system's cold mechanical voice sounded in my head. Congratulations, host. You have passed the final test. Soul resonance, 100%. Mission complete. I had won the game. As my reward, I was granted authority over the city equal to Isabel's. The first thing I did was access the system's source code and delete every program related to contractors, missions, and candidates. I opened the passages to the lower labor sectors, freeing the former contractors who had been trapped there with their memories wiped. I gave them a choice. Take a sum of money large enough to live lavishly for the rest of their lives, and leave the city through a confidential channel back to the homes that were no longer theirs, or forget the past and stay as official residents of our city. Isabel stood behind me, watching me do it all. She didn't stop me, didn't say a word, Only when I processed the last file did she finally speak. Aren't you afraid they'll come back for revenge or leak our secrets to the outside world? I closed the console and turned to face her. A true king doesn't need a prison to maintain his rule, I said. And as for the secrets, I smiled. Between the ravings of a madman and the testimony of a dead man, who do you think the world will believe? I began to reform the captive city. I wasn't a saint. My mercy was just a more advanced, more stable method of control. I allowed a controlled flow of outside information and culture, breaking the long-standing isolation while simultaneously building a more sophisticated defense network and information firewall. Isabel's paranoia and obsession, once a blade at my throat, became the strongest weapon in defense of our shared kingdom. I built her a sanctuary, a white castle in the heart of the city that only I could enter, a place where she felt completely safe. I became her only anchor. She no longer needed to hurt or imprison me to be sure I was real. And she, in turn, willingly became the unshakable foundation of my throne. I had gone from a bird in a cage to the true king of this city. Years passed under our joint rule. The city transformed, taking on a strange but prosperous new life. My relationship with Isabel settled from a tense battle of wills into a sick yet stable symbiosis. She would still get jealous if I looked at a woman for a second too long at a party, locking me out of the bedroom for a week. But I had learned how to expertly soothe her anxieties with a single kiss and a quiet promise. Lately, I had noticed a new change in her. She began secretly reading books on child rearing, anonymously consulting online forums about pregnancy and birth. Her eyes held a new kind of hope mixed with a familiar flicker of fear. I knew what she was afraid of. She was terrified a child would divide my love and attention. That night, I came up behind her and gently closed her laptop. "Stop looking," I said. Her body tensed. I rested my chin on her shoulder and whispered, "A child will be an extension of our life together, but you will always be my one and only." In front of her, I pulled up the system's back end, which I had long since archived. As she watched, I typed in a master command. "Format all system modules Y/N." I selected Y. The progress bar hit 100%. All the data, all the records, all the rules vanished into nothing. "Now," I told her, "there is no system. There's only us." She leaned back against me, silent for a long moment, then whispered, "Leo, I think you've actually fallen in love with me." I kissed her forehead, but didn't answer. Love, maybe, or maybe when you spend long enough in the abyss, you can no longer stand the glare of the light. Just when I thought everything was finally settled, a familiar yet distant voice echoed in my mind without warning. Hidden Easter egg mission triggered. Cultivate a suitable heir reward. Unlock coordinates to the true world. I looked at Isabel, who had fallen asleep in my arms, reassured and at peace. Then I considered the ultimate mission reward being offered in my mind, and I laughed without making a sound. The true world, the world where I was an orphan, beaten in foster care, selling my dignity for pocket change at the bottom of society. Claw my way through mud just to survive. Go back for what? To become an insignificant, disposable nobody all over again. Here I was a king. I had my partner, even if her love was twisted and obsessive. I had a city. I had the power to make the rules. I had everything. Going home had been a lie from the very beginning. For me, home was wherever she and power resided. I focused my will, the authority of the system's new master, and issued a final command to the voice in my head. Reject Easter egg mission permanently archived. The voice seemed to struggle for a moment, and then it was gone for good. I looked down at Isabel's sleeping face. Her brow was still slightly furrowed, as if afraid I might vanish in the night. I took her hand and brought it to my lips, pressing a gentle kiss against her skin. "Don't be afraid," I whispered. "I'm not going anywhere." I had won her over, and she had imprisoned me. Or perhaps in the end, we had both willingly walked into this eternal cage called love and locked the door from the inside. This was my homecoming,